While fighting fire with fire, a special report tonight on the damage caused by July's massive lake fire and communities in the San Ynez Valley.
And News Channel anchor Scott Hennessy toured a property where half of the land burned. Scott?
3,000 acres of the UCSB Sedgwick Reserve burned in the lake fire, most of it from backfires. Structures were protected, but damage was done, and some neighbors whose homes were threatened say it didn't have to be this way.
We see that a lot. I mean, the oaks can withstand the heat, but if they're mechanically weakened by fire inside the stem, then that's the end of it.
Frank Davis showed us the effects of the lake fire on the UCSB Sedgwick Reserve in the Santa Ynez Valley.
Still hot, but it's no longer smoking.
The research center director explaining the valley oak trees that died burned from the bottom up and the inside out.
Many of these old oaks are hollow inside, and the fire got into the hollow chamber of the tree and creates what's called a chimney.
Fire behavior is one of the many things researchers study here. But the lake fire that broke out July 5th near Zaca Lake was more than a scientific experiment.
Initially, it was pretty scary, not knowing what was going to happen.
Heather Constable is director of the UCSB Sedgwick Reserve.
I mean, we've been prepared for this. This is on our mind all the time, being in this country and all the research that we do with fire.
And then it started to come down into the reserve about the third day of the burn.
You can still see where fire retardant was dropped to slow the fire's spread. Thousands of firefighters worked for weeks to put out the blaze that would burn over 38,000 acres.
The winds didn't pick up. We're worried about sundowner winds. Luckily, that didn't happen, and the firefighters could start doing back burning.
About half of the 6,000-acre Sedgwick Reserve burned.
And they also put in additional control lines.
Most of the charred land you see was caused by backfires set by fire crews to protect the research station, facilities, and neighboring Woodstock Ranch homes.
So they're able to make slowly burn up towards the fire to hold it and create some black so it wouldn't advance. And that, combined with the dozer lines that were driven through, led us a pretty good buffer.
12 miles of dozer containment lines were cut across the property, and roads were widened by 17 miles, according to Davis.
All for the purpose of keeping people and infrastructure safe, but it means that we have some work to do to remediate that.
In our reporting of this story, we also learned they have some fences to mend with their neighbors. The Woodstock Ranch Property Owners Association says the threat of the fire was exacerbated by the heavy fuel load present on the Sedgwick Reserve due to what they call negligent rangeland management of the property over recent years. They outlined a list of concerns that they've sent to the UC Natural Reserve System and Sedgwick Reserve leadership.
This area in particular.
Constable says researchers studying the animals and plants at Sedgwick Reserve are eager to get out and see what happened to their projects after the fire.
I mean, these are people's theses are being developed, so the fire could either be an interesting part of their chapter or it might ruin their entire experiment and conclusion.
The lake fire has provided an opportunity for new research. A group from UCLA is studying how fire affects the acorn crop on oak trees.
So what they wanted to do is bag up some branches on these oaks and catch any acorns that are dropped prematurely that wouldn't be viable acorns, so they can estimate how much of the crop is lost.
Dozens of research projects are ongoing here at any given time. Public access is limited to a few special events and docent-led hikes.
Everybody just seems so happy to be here. We have people from campus come out and they're happy to get out of the office, and everybody's just so supportive and loves this open space.
You can read the full letter from the concerned neighbors on our website. Constable sent us a statement in response to it that reads in part, quote, Sedgwick Reserve is at the forefront of wildfire research and has worked closely with the county and university fire marshal for the last decade to develop our comprehensive fire mitigation and vegetation management plans, end quote. Constable says, guys, she thinks they can find some common ground with Woodstock Ranch homeowners, but they are adamant that they want to see some changes.
What would you say would be the top concern that they would have at their list?
Cattle grazing. They'd like to see that brought back. They had it, and apparently they stopped it last year. That reduces the fuel load for a fire. Constable tells us they are working on their own grazing plan and are looking to work with a local grazer who shares their conservation conservation and research mission.
All right, well done. Fascinating
Thank you,
story,
Scott.
and I'm sure we'll have follow-ups as well. Thank you, Scott.